One question we should ask ourselves is, does the First Amendment protect all forms of speech? Having studied the assigned materials, I've gained a better understanding of free speech in the First Amendment and how some forms of speech are and are not protected by it. There are a few fundamental aspects of free speech that we should know, being the First Amendment protects some forms of expression but not others, protection from government interference, and the right to free expression. So let me break down the first point. Pornography. Pornography is a serious issue all over the world that many unfortunately associate themselves with. But does the First Amendment protect this right? There's only one way to find out. On page number 175 in the book, it says, most people use it to designate whatever sexual expression they find distasteful. Regarding the following statement, this matter frequently appears in religious and cultural beliefs that people have, and where they view particular forms of expression as offensive to the values that they possess. On page number 176, it says that the term pornography has been used by movements at the opposite ends of the political spectrum, with diametrically different views about sexual and gender issues, to demonize the diametrically different subsets of sexual expression. What this means is that the term pornography is used by many different kinds of groups all across the political spectrum who have diverse beliefs about gender and sexuality. When one thinks of the word pornography, it means what it comes down to is the word demonize, when they mention the word demonize in the text, in relation to this concept. When they use the term demonize, they try to convey a message that this type of act is looked at as evil, or what people believe to be wrong or improper in that regard. One example mentioned in the book is the radical feminist anti-pornography movement. I thought this was very important to cover. I believe this movement is significant because it is one that views pornography as an act of treating a person unfairly to be able to gain their own benefit from such behavior. Examples of pornography include images and photographs, for example, depicting sexually arousing behavior, and writing that can include short stories or novels that involve inappropriate descriptions of sexual activity. I thought those were pretty good examples. There are also some forms of pornography that are not protected by the First Amendment. For example, things like obscenity, child pornography, and sexual harassment are all major issues in this case. Also, on page number 182, it states that, consistent with the viewpoint neutrality principle, the court explained that the controversial nature of expression constitutes a reason to protect it and not to suppress it. The viewpoint neutrality principle is one of the most important things mentioned in this chapter because it means that the government cannot approve or disapprove of speech that is connected to the speaker's opinion. The First Amendment also does not necessarily protect violent speech. According to the book, speech may be punished when it has a reasonably direct relation to violence, or any form of violence. The book also breaks down some subcategories of speech that could be punished by the government. These subcategories include intentional incitement of imminent violence, fighting words when it is direct, face-to-face personal insult, solicitation of specific violent acts against specific individuals, and true threats, speech that is targeted towards a single individual or a small group, for example. On page 182, it also mentions the 1969 case of Tinker versus Des Moines and how the court imposed the emergency principle to protect speech that had been controlled due to an unpredictable, undifferentiated fear that violence could occur. This is following its message, which strongly criticizes the Vietnam War. So in this case, the Vietnam War is criticized and talked down upon. Violent speech is something that I believe should be taken full accountability for, because it can cause severe negative impacts on an individual and can also negatively impact society and a community that is supposed to be fair and just rather than not. Some examples of violent speech include physical violence, legal consequences like criminal charges, and civil lawsuits, for example, can also be examples. In addition, major consequences of violent speech include emotional distress claims or emotional distress alone. I believe violent speech can be unfair because it can encourage people to break the law and commit extreme yet violent acts that can put one's life at risk. And because the First Amendment protects freedom of expression, it would be very unjust for violent speech to be protected due to the harm that it causes individuals who are targets for said speech. It is also unjust because it is considered aggressive behavior and commonly involves threatening language. For instance, phrases like, "I'm going to get you," or "you're going to regret this," are examples of language or sayings that are within the violent speech category. The last point I'm going to explain is why the First Amendment protects speech that could provoke retaliatory violence against the speaker or others. On page 182, it also says that current First Amendment law permits government to restrict speech due to its potential provocation or retaliatory violence against the speaker or others, such as the speaker's supporters or other audience members, in only one strictly limited situation, under the current narrow concept of punishable fighting words. This part of the chapter brings up what is called the contemporary fighting doctrine and explains that it does not justify silencing speech due to potential cruel violence against when the person speaking delves into a general idea. Another reason why this doctrine is pivotal is because it allows the government to gain restrictions on speech that is considered either abusive or belittling that can lead to violence. In my opinion, personally, the reason why the First Amendment protects speech that could provoke retaliatory violence against the speaker or others is because the main idea of free speech is to enable a strong exchanging of views or ideas between individuals. So to wrap up, one question we should ask ourselves is, does the First Amendment protect all forms of speech? There are a few fundamental aspects of free speech that we should know. The First Amendment protects some forms of expression but not others, protection from government interference, and the right to free expression. And all in all, it is crucial that the First Amendment continues to protect different forms of speech.